Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm Debbie Hellman with Abercrombie and Kent, and I have some special guests today that we are going to interview. First off, I have Jonathan Alder from Jonathan's Travels. He's right here in sunny Southern California with me. And then I have Medhat Murad. Medhat is our head of tourism for our office in Egypt, coming to you live from Cairo. And then I have beautiful Natalia Odinochkina. She is our general manager of A&K Russia, based in Moscow. Nice to see everybody this morning. Jonathan, do you want to tell us a little bit about Jonathan's Travels?
Sure. So we're a premier luxury agency here based in Los Angeles that has a strong concierge touch and focuses on custom luxury travel. We're affiliated with Travel Store, so therefore we're part of Signature Travel Network, and most hotel programs do that. And of course, that's our affiliation with Abercrombie and Kent. We handle leisure, we handle corporate, but on the leisure side, it's trying to create true pieces of art form with a concierge touch. So handheld service and customizing travel to what your needs are.
Wonderful. And I, of course, know I've worked with you for many years, know what a wonderful job and great partner you are. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Abercrombie and Kent, we're a global luxury tour operator. We operate on all 7 continents, and we have 55 offices around the world, doing everything from tailor-made travel to small group tours, private jet, and luxury expedition cruising. But today we're going to focus on a couple of trips that Jonathan's been taking during this time of COVID, just to show the world that travel, we know that everybody's excited to get back to traveling, and there are some destinations that are open right now. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his latest trips to Uzbekistan and to Egypt. So Jonathan, I just, want you to start off. You've got a picture there of the airport. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to travel right now?
It was very interesting, mostly from a good standpoint, which was exciting and really a pleasant surprise to see how the world has been handling everything outside of home, what we don't see when we're just watching TV or we're just walking around our neighborhoods. So I've seen great use of masks, particularly when traveling, especially at the airports and on planes. No complaints. You can see a shot of that here. The first shot was boarding in Istanbul's new airport. What you're seeing now is on board Uzbekistan Airways. Our first destination was Uzbekistan. Very pleasantly surprised, a very luxurious experience for not necessarily what I was picturing it to be. Other than the 4 Soviet era movies, and that was all that was offered. Everything else was quite wonderful and really a nice way to get there. We flew over parts of Russia that I had never seen before, including over the Caspian into Central Asia. And upon landing in the evening, you can see the size of Tashkent there. We were greeted very warmly by your Abercrombie and Kent staff, given traditional hats, and got a very warm welcome to Tashkent.
Wonderful. So Natalia, can you let us know what type of COVID protocols are needed for U.S. citizens to travel to Uzbekistan currently, and any safety measures that are in place to keep our guests safe?
Well, just like practically everywhere where travel is allowed, where borders are open, there are very strict safety measures that are maintained because safety is our priority. The hotels, especially hotels of international brands, and I believe this is where Jonathan, you stayed at a Hilton, correct?
Hyatt,
correct. A Hyatt, but Hilton would also maintain similar protocols. So of social distancing, extra cleaning, wearing masks. So all this is very carefully and meticulously maintained at the hotel. I'm sure you had the chance to see this and experience this yourself when you were there.
Very much so, especially by the Abercrombie and Kent staff throughout, the vehicles, the drivers, and the guides throughout, without any complaints.
So just as I said, so your client safety is our priority. So we do instruct all our suppliers, all the people and services, service providers that we use to maintain, to stick to these new protocols. Of course, this is very new normal for us. We're all learning, but we understand the importance of it and definitely do our best to maintain it.
Jonathan, I'm dying to visit the stands in the Caucasus, but it's not on a lot of people's radar right now. How did you choose Uzbekistan?
It's actually been on our list for the last couple of years, on and off, is something we discussed. And then with Uzbekistan opening, some of it is based on what's opening today and what isn't. So it kind of felt like the right moment to go for it. Interesting region. It's one of the very few regions of the world that either of us hadn't been to yet, which is pretty rare at this point. So something new, something different, something really interesting that's been on our list. Was, of all the destinations I've been to in 70 plus countries, one of the biggest surprises of what it was really like. Extremely clean, extremely modern, with beautiful touches of old world architecture and style, but mixed in that is in a very first world country. Fantastic food, as you can see here. These are some shots of Tashkent. Very green, large, beautiful parks and gardens, and really one of the safest, cleanest cities I've ever seen in my life. I'd put it as even cleaner than Tokyo. You won't see a speck of dirt. You can walk through the streets at night without any problem. Highly recommended for anyone after this experience.
Yep.
Oh, wonderful. Natalia, yeah, can you tell us like how much time you would suggest for somebody who wants to travel to Uzbekistan and what routing?
Well, Uzbekistan has a lot to offer, and it's a very, very important part of the Silk Road, and many cities in Uzbekistan count more than 2,000 years, so of history. And they have most amazing architecture and require at least 2 nights, sometimes 3 nights. Correct, Jonathan? You would agree with me on that. And Absolutely. There are several very, very important centers that you need to visit when in Uzbekistan. Of course, you may start with Tashkent, which I think would be a great introduction into the modern Uzbekistan. And then by fast trains or by local air, which is very, very safe and very modern, you can reach such places as Khiva, Bukhara, Samarkand. I would say that the duration of such a trip would be between 7 and 10 days, depending on your interest, and whether you want to explore this area in depth. There are other parts of Uzbekistan which are also worth visiting. Maybe for your next trip, Jonathan, you may wish to explore Fergana area, which is a completely different part of Uzbekistan, equally fascinating with a lot of fantastic architecture and history behind it. So between 7 and 10 days. But Uzbekistan can be very nicely linked with the neighboring countries, especially Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan, which are its immediate neighbors. Generally, in Central Asia, we're talking about 5 stands. There are 5 of them: Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, in my opinion, is the biggest draw. It is really the most fascinating place, and probably where you can find the biggest concentration of this medieval history, of the Silk Road history. Then Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan are the places for nature lovers. They have, there are some of the highest peaks in the world are there. Many peaks reach 7,000 meters in height and more. And it is an ideal place for those who want to be out in the, closer to nature, away from the big cities and crowds of people. And it's a great, great place for hiking, for mountain climbing. Then if you're interested in history, I would say Uzbekistan would be the first choice. Turkmenistan also has some incredibly fascinating places, old ancient excavation sites, which span the period of 4,000 years. This is for as long as 4,000 years, cities existed there, which were centers, cradles of scholarship, of culture, of religion. So another fascinating land to visit. And then finally, Kazakhstan, probably the wealthiest of all the five, but in my opinion, it is probably the newest, of them all. Not as exciting as the other two, in terms of the old history, ancient history, but certainly very comfortable with five-star luxury hotels and great infrastructure and lots of gorgeous natural sites like the Charin Canyon, which is very similar to the Grand Canyon in the US, and some beautiful lakes and fortresses and palaces. So that's another big attraction. I would say one can do all five in one trip. It will be a very, I hate the word hop on, hop off, but if you do something similar to that, at least spending a couple of nights in each place, the whole trip will take about up to 20 days or 3 weeks.
Well, hopefully some people have that amount of time, but if not, certainly they can do it in smaller segments. Jonathan, these pictures look absolutely amazing. Tell us what some of the highlights were for you, and don't forget to leave out the food, because of course that's pretty much a highlight for everywhere I travel to.
The food was amazing throughout. Getting to try the local cuisine and focus on the things that were native to Uzbek culture were fantastic. Other than our fantastic guides across the country, some of the shots you're about to see here in Samarkand, really some of the architecture is the most beautiful I've ever seen in my entire life anywhere. These photos you're about to see right here do not do this justice. You can't take photos of this to justify what it really looks like in person. Definitely Bukhara and Samarkand are amazing. Tashkent to me was the biggest surprise. I just loved the city, and it definitely requires a couple of days. Uzbekistan, as she was saying a moment ago, well, we did about a week, requires another trip to see the rest. We didn't get out as far as Khiva. We didn't get out to the valleys, and we'd love to get to the neighboring Stan countries. So. Yeah. So much more to see. But for those that love architecture, I mean, the architecture in the country is self-descriptive of how gorgeous it is, and seeing it in person is a whole other level. For art lovers, for history lovers, this should really be a true top destination. For those that treasure European history, this is a big part of it, because so much came through the Silk Road. A lot that you studied in school as kids here in America was on Marco Polo and those journeys. You're seeing the real thing here. Very welcoming, liberal, open country. Not at all what I pictured it to be. So a great place for travelers to come experience who don't know what they're missing out on really at this point, which is such a great thing about it, because you can go before the crowds really start coming here.
So, yeah, Jonathan, adding on to that, one of my favorite things when I travel are meeting the locals. That's certainly a highlight for me. Tell us about the people of Uzbekistan. Were they welcoming to Americans, and did they speak English? Or I know, you've got Ilmer with you who speaks Russian. So let us know, how is it like to get around for somebody like myself who unfortunately doesn't speak Russian, even though most of my family does?
English is by the guides and your staff, it's great. No problems at all. Their English is perfect, not the slightest thing. When you're going around, English is mandatory to be taken in school in the country, so English is spoken. I wouldn't say it's proficient, but it's definitely spoken. Having someone that speaks Russian is probably the best thing you could have with you here, because it kind of feels like little Moscow at a point. Russian is more of a first language than even Uzbek is. So English does get by. People will understand little bits of what you're saying, at least if you say it slowly and simply at any restaurant or throughout the country. So in terms of it being welcoming, extremely welcoming, very much interested to know who you are, meet you, get to learn about you and your culture. They're enthralled to have Americans come visit. So it's a great time to come, and a very welcoming, safe country to visit.
So obviously, guides are probably one of the most important part of traveling. Can you tell us a little bit about your guides?
They were fantastic. They knew everything about the history, and they kept it interesting. They weren't boring or just textbooks. They were very engaging, sweet, wonderful. I still chat with some of them online. Um, and made the stay perfect. And especially having a tour escort with us, who was our guide in Tashkent and then stayed with us for the rest of the trip, kept the product to be very continuous. Everything flowed well. We were introduced. We were met by the right people. There was no who's our guide today, who's this, because we switched through a lot of cities fast. So everything was handled for us really smoothly, which made it a pleasure when we really don't know what we're doing in a country like this.
Oh, nice.
Well, this helps a lot, when you have an escort guide, and this we discovered this is really such a good practice for us, and it provides this extra comfort for our clients. This is exactly when I talk about A&K cocooning our clients in a destination that is so unfamiliar, when people feel a little bit uneasy because it's just an unknown terrain for them. So this escort guide would be just an extra friend on the ground, and will just make sure the whole trip runs smoothly.
Mm. Natalia, Jonathan was there in October. Is that a good time, or what do you suggest is the best time to travel?
October is not bad at all. My favorite season, actually, there are two best seasons. One is spring, and this would be April and May. You can also try to come in March, but it can be a little bit wet, but April is just absolutely perfect. This is when the peach trees are blossoming, and the spring is full in the air. And then September and October. This is another wonderful season, so-called velvety, balmy climate, not so hot as during summer months. And it's a wonderful, wonderful time weather-wise.
Our weather was great. I don't think we had any complaints of the weather there this
Lots of sunshine, practically every day was sunny, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, but
and
very dry, extremely dry climate.
Dry, absolutely, because it's all desert around it, so particularly, in places like Turkmenistan, but there are plenty of deserts in Uzbekistan too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Jonathan and Natalia, tell us the best way to get there from the United States.
Well, Jonathan, you tell Debbie about your experience.
So going through Istanbul is a great way, which is, you're seeing here, one of the Turkish Airlines business class seats that run on the route. Between them and Uzbekistan Airways, you have great options. From the US, there's a nonstop flight on and off now, but there generally is a nonstop flight from New York. So it's very easy, anywhere to New York nonstop to Tashkent. On that exact same plane you saw in the pictures earlier, that is the Dreamliner that they fly nonstop and the only aircraft they use. But there's access from many places that Uzbekistan Airways does fly from Europe, New York, and the region. So it's not a hard destination to get to. From there,
No.
Regional flights or driving even to the other stand countries make it accessible. But Uzbekistan Airways, being the biggest, strongest, safest airline in the region, is a great one to use.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we do include driving segments into our programs itineraries, particularly if they are a combination of a few stands. Sometimes it's a combination of flying, of crossing the border on land, driving, or taking the fast trains. So the fast trains are available now. I saw some pictures that Jonathan shared with us of the fast trains. Very comfortable, first class, business class on these trains, and we provide concierge rail service, take care of the luggage movement, so our clients don't even have to touch their bags. So this is really a wonderful experience. And in my opinion, probably Turkish Airlines would be an ideal way to travel, to reach Uzbekistan in particular. Istanbul is a great gateway. You can, from Istanbul, you can then connect to any other place in Europe if you want to extend your trip and add a European part to Uzbekistan. And then also, you don't have to go via Tashkent every time. You can fly into Tashkent, do the round trip in Uzbekistan and fly out of Samarkand. So
Wonderful.
this is very convenient.
Good. So before we move on to Egypt, just one last question. Any suggestions for guests prior to visiting the area that they should know, like are US dollars readily accepted, credit cards, any little suggestions that people forget to ask?
Jonathan, how was it for you?
US dollars could be, but the local currency is easy to get at ATMs. It's a 10,000 to 1 exchange rate, so you feel extremely rich.
Yes.
With piles of cash. Credit cards, as this is a new country, they've really been open for about 4 years now. Cell phones work great. Your technology is going to be just fine, but credit cards are not widely accepted in the country yet. So one of the nice things A&K did was include all of the meals in the plan, so you don't have to carry suitcases of cash. But you do go to the ATM and you do keep large piles of money on you. Credit cards are accepted and they are starting up more and more, but you still use quite a bit of cash in the country.
Perfect.
Yep. Correct.
It's very accessible to get cash. It wasn't hard to find an ATM.
Well, definitely a destination I'm dying to get to. And now we're going to move on to an area that I was lucky enough to just visit last year before we shut down, and that is Egypt. So, Medhat, hi, how are you? Hope you're doing well.
Hi.
No, it's evening for both you and Natalia. So thanks for staying up for this. But can you tell us what the current protocols are currently needed to visit Egypt for U.S. travelers?
Well, Egypt now is open for the whole world, including, of course, our dear guests from the US. So all what we need here is PCR. In case of coming from the US, is 96 hours before boarding your flight from your US city and making the connection to arrive to Egypt. So that's the only requirement that we require right now, is a negative PCR test 96 hours before boarding your flight.
Very good. Now, Jonathan, you were coming from, obviously from Uzbekistan. How did you arrange for testing, and was it easy to do?
We took care of that in Istanbul. Istanbul airport can turn it around in 5 hours. So we connected kind of over a 20-hour period in Istanbul. So we went to a hotel, stayed, had a day, had some lunch and dinner, and then came back to the airport. We got, upon landing in Istanbul, we received our test upstairs, $25 a person, left and got those results later that night and printed them out at the hotel.
Wonderful. And Medhat, can you tell us about any, safety protocols we've implemented?
Yeah, absolutely. As the rest of the world is doing, we are following the worldwide guidelines of hygiene at hotels and at restaurants, on board of the sanctuary cruises as well. So the staff has to wear masks, the guides as well, and are trying as much as possible to do social distancing. And for groups, of course, we are using more into headsets for the guide to speak to the whole group instead of just trying to eliminate the very close contact with the guests from the guides. So it's working very well till now. Egypt is opened since July. Actually, this part where Johnson and Elmer went at the beginning, which is Sharm el-Sheikh on the Red Sea. So this part is open since July, and since October, beginning of October, the rest of Egypt is open for visitors, including Cairo, Giza, and everything. So that was a very, very successful part of measurements taken by the government. Until now, the hotels and the cruises are running at 50% occupancy, just to make sure that we don't have crowds, we don't, special things are eliminated, like big conferences, like weddings at hotels and so on. So this is to try to have more into social distancing and preventing people get into crowds at the same time.
Now, Jonathan, you've traveled so extensively. I was surprised this was your first trip to Egypt, one of my favorite places. Did you love it? And tell me about it. And what were the highlights for you?
We had a great time and really loved it. The sights of Egypt are, I mean, really, nothing can touch the sights just for the spectacular of what they are and how old everything is. Pleasantly surprised by what you're seeing here, which is Sharm el Sheikh on the Red Sea. We've just in the last 12 months, we've been in Tahiti, Hawaii, and the Maldives, and this is the best water I have ever seen in my entire life. Clearer, warmer, smoother. For those that love to snorkel and dive, if you've never thought of Egypt as being something you should do, really, you've truly missed out. It is, there is nothing else like it. The sites coming up here in terms of the ancient world on the other side of the Red Sea, grand, large, and incredibly well preserved. While Uzbekistan was thousands of years later, and the gilding and architecture work is incredible, they're just being absorbed in 5,000 to 6,000 year old history. I mean, one of the sites we saw is the oldest architectural structure on the planet in Saqqara. Really is kind of jaw dropping. It makes what you learn in school real, and highly recommended for everyone at some point.
Well, and again, as we were saying with Uzbekistan, the guides really make the trip. And I know in Egypt, they're all Egyptologists. Can you tell us about your guides?
Of course, Abercrombie and Kent runs kind of, Egypt is your thing. You've been in there longer than anyone else, and your operation is on par as the best. The guides were fantastic. Any question was known. They engaged you. They made it very, very interesting throughout, so that it was never boring. They customized it perfectly to our taste. So when it was too long or too hot, we moved on. And when we wanted more, they got us access into more. So they made the trip wonderful. And you definitely need a guide in Egypt. This is not a place to even consider any time on your own.
Wonderful. I also know you stayed in there are some spectacular hotels in Egypt. Tell us about your favorites.
Our favorite for sure. I mean, the Luxor Hilton was very, very nice, far beyond the brand. The Four Seasons Sharm el Sheikh was great. They're even adding an additional part to it. The hotel itself is beautiful. But our favorite was actually, surprisingly, the Mina House, which was a kind of last second back and forth decision. And do we stay in Cairo or do we stay out by Giza? Made the right decision. Waking up in the morning with the Great Pyramids of Giza in your backyard, having peace and quiet, having a beautiful garden. Well, now the new wing is open. In just under 2 years, they should be reopening the palace wing from the 1800s, which should be, I'm guessing, very spectacular by this point. But our favorite hotel was your ship, was the Sunboat 3, which you're seeing here. Your staff was incredibly accommodating. You want food? Sure, we're not serving it now. We'll make it. You want to switch up your entire menu? We'll make that happen. Everything about the people of the Sunboat 3 made that quite an amazing part of the trip. Oh, and it is a hotel. I mean, we're with our guide every day, so it didn't feel like your typical cruise ship experience. It's a floating hotel.
Of course, of course. And Medhat, as you know, we've got several of sisters to the Sunboat 3. Can you tell us about our other cruises on the Nile that we have?
Well, we're lucky enough because the guidelines that are now rules to travel to Egypt and certain parts of the world are our actually main way to, since forever, to deal with our guests when on touring. So we have our small boutique boats at the Sunboat 3, where Johnson and Elmer were. They are. It takes only 36 people. I mean, guests. If it's full in all doubles, so it's only 18 cabins. We also have the Sanctuary Sunboat 4, and the Sanctuary Sunboat 4 is our biggest with 40 cabins. And this is the boat used for our very famous Egypt and the Nile program of the luxury small group journeys of NKUSA. We also have the Nile Adventurer, and the Nile Adventurer is also 32 cabins. And we have our own sanctuary Zain Nile Chateau, which is the Habaya. The Habaya is a sailing boat without any noise. We're just relaxing over, going from one spot to another. And it's only 6 units. It's 2 suites and 4 cabins, which fits very well right now for families traveling together who doesn't really want to mingle a lot with many passengers on board. So they would like to have something private for them on their own, chartering the boat. That's ideal for them as well.
Wonderful. Jonathan, getting back to food, because we know that's one of my favorite subjects next to shopping. Tell us about the food in Egypt, because I loved it.
The food was fantastic. And we were lucky enough to have the executive chef of Abercrombie and Kent as our chef on board the ship. So the food was fantastic throughout. We ate a lot. And one thing that we loved that you'll see later on in the pictures is a food tour that we took of Cairo that I highly recommend for anyone that even just likes to eat. Really bringing you into the food culture of Egypt and getting to try a little bit of everything. But it was really a highlight of the trip, and your chef was fantastic. I mean, the first day we told him we don't want Western food, we only want Egyptian, and he totally remade the menu just for us. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner was local cuisine. And unfortunately, I think I gained 5 pounds on umali, but I will continue to eat it if I can decide to make it one day at home. It's an Egyptian bread pudding that's probably the most fattening thing you can eat, but just delicious.
Yeah, my favorite was baba ganoush. I ate that everywhere. So we're looking now at one of my favorite parts of Egypt, and that is, of course, the Valley of the Kings. Jonathan, I see you got to take some pictures with King Tut in the tombs there. And Madhat, can you tell us a little bit about some, I know we have some special access to some of the tombs as well there.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's amazing over there. I mean, and it all relates right now because when you come to Egypt and you see the treasures of Tutankhamun here at the museum, the current museum in Tahrir, and when the Grand Egyptian Museum opens, there will be there the 5,000 pieces of Tutankhamun displayed for the first time. I mean, for you to compare the current display at the Egyptian Museum of Antiquities currently in Tahrir is a bit more than 1,000 pieces. And for the first time, 4,000 pieces of these treasures will be displayed at the Grand Egyptian Museum. So when you see it here, and then you go to the Valley of the Kings, and you go into the King Tut tomb, you can just imagine how this is in this area of the tomb, all these treasures were found, and you can just visualize the historical part of it. We also have the City First tomb over there, which is a beautiful tomb, again, at the Valley of the Kings. And we have special access as well to the beautiful Queen Nefertari tomb at the Valley of the Queens. So these are very, very special visits that we can do over there. And these are still the highlights. In Luxor, you can spend easily 4 or 5 days touring the West Bank and the East Bank, and you see something new every day because there are so many sites over there, and all of them are very important, but we include the best and the highlights and the most famous ones.
And you know,
did a great job of getting all of that in and really keeping it interesting and fascinating the entire time.
it is, isn't it? It really is fascinating. And, you know, Egyptian history dates back, you know, almost 5,000 years, but it seems every day they're discovering something new there, including a brand new museum that they're going to house it in. So tell us a little bit. I know in the news, Madhat, there's been a lot about some new discoveries. Can you tell us a little bit about that, when we'll be able maybe to see them, and a little bit about the Grand Egyptian Museum?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's like everyone is speaking about the Grand Egyptian Museum, but this is happening in 2021. We'll get to it. But currently, in the next few weeks, we have another museum opening. I mean, we're opening museums almost every month right now. We have a new museum in Sharm el-Sheikh, which opened 2 weeks ago. And that's because simply a guest who comes from Europe and spends some time on the resorts on the beach and doesn't come to all the way to Cairo, they can go to this museum and experience the culture and the history still of Egypt. Also, very soon, the 22 royal mummies of the kings and queens of ancient Egypt, who were located at the current Egyptian Museum in Tahrir, will go into a royal parade from this museum to a new museum, not the Grand Egyptian Museum, a new civilization, the Civilization Museum, and they will be placed over there. And this parade will be huge. It will be all over the streets of Cairo, going over there in a very, very, I mean, special, like a carnival. So that's really very interesting. Of course, as you said, we have our new excavations in Saqqara, and we're finding things every day. I mean, it's like, it's great. I mean, as if, I mean, our ancestors are helping us to get the travel back to Egypt at this time. So we just found 59 sarcophagus. That was like 2 months ago. And now we found another 80. Actually more than 100 sarcophagus in another place also in Saqqara. So Saqqara is a very, very important place. And I'm not sure if you saw this or not, but if you didn't, please check it out. There is a very nice tomb in Saqqara called the Tomb of Ahti. They did a show regarding this tomb, the discovery itself, on Netflix. And it's now trending and everyone is seeing this. It's called the Secrets of the Tomb of Saqqara. It's really very interesting. It's like a 90 minutes documentary about the finding of this tomb, and which really brings it alive and the history alive, and the whole thing about the finding and how they found, how they opened the shafts and how they find more things over there and so on. And we do have a very special access to this tomb right now. So that's not open for public, but whoever would like to, our guests would like to visit this tomb right now, we do have very special access over there.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. You know, you can always keep going back to Egypt because there's always going to be something new to discover there. Jonathan, you were lucky enough to go to Sharm el-Sheikh. I'm so jealous. I have not been there. Can you tell me a little bit about your time there, what you did there, and you know, would you suggest for clients to add it on to a trip?
Oh, 100%. If you, it really was the best in terms of, again, water quality, the best beach vacation I've ever seen anywhere. If you're in the region, it's well worth it. If you're a diver, it's worth it to come, even if you weren't doing any other part of Egypt, because it is the sea life off of the front of the hotel jetty is better than most diving or snorkeling trips that you would have to go a distance to. Great way to end or start a trip if you just need some downtime at first or you need some downtime at the end. In addition, while we didn't do it on this trip, you have St. Catherine's Monastery within a couple of hours in Mount Moses to see where the 10 Commandments were handed down. So if that's of interest to you, if it's religious reasons or just historical reasons and you want to experience it, or you're just into a great all-night hike, it's a really interesting experience to add on in the Sinai. So there are sites to see as well. It's not just a beach vacation, but we stayed there for 5 nights. It's a great way to start or end a trip because Egypt is so hectic and you're doing quite a bit every day. You don't have a lot of downtime. So your time there, great way to relax and enjoy your time. By the way, this is the Grand Egyptian Museum there.
Yeah. And this is the original museum.
Yep.
Yeah. So Jonathan, how many days were you total in Egypt?
We were there for 11, I think it was.
Yep.
Let's see, a week plus, yeah, like 11 or 12.
11. And Medhat, how many days would you suggest for somebody traveling to Egypt? What would they need to really see everything?
Well, it depends on their needs and their time frame. We can tailor make anything from just staying in Cairo for a few days. If you are going to somewhere else and you would like to connect and just stay over for a few nights, or you would like to visit Cairo itself, or combining to a cruise to see the cultural aspects of Egypt, or if you would like to do like Johnson did, mix between the resorts on the Red Sea and the cultural side in Cairo, Luxor, and Aswan, using a Nile cruise. I say minimum a week, just to try to cover Cairo and Luxor and Aswan.
Wonderful. Well, Jonathan, we can't thank you enough for traveling with us. I hope you loved your time there. Is there anything else you want to tell us about your travels?
We loved so many destinations, but we loved these two destinations. They're interesting, they're fascinating. The history of both of them, as you can see, the kittens are kind of cute too. We do like our cat pictures, so you'll see a lot of that mixed in. The food, the welcoming attitude of the people. This is a very welcoming, both of these countries are very welcoming to tourists, especially right now, and are great destinations where for both of them, you're outside quite a bit. They're not as much inside destinations as you are touring outside and walking around. So there's a lot of safety measures in place just based on that. You'll see here at the historical sites, there's nobody here right now. Come. This is a great time to do it. If you want social distancing, you're never going to find it quieter than this inside the Great Pyramids of Giza. We didn't wait and let crowds move by and then take these photos. That's it. There were two of us. When we went to Abu Simbel, there were just us. That is a very small opening, as you can see there, but how much better is it to have that than have tour buses of people trying to get up and down that at the same time? Such a great opportunity to travel right now and get a chance to see this, and couldn't recommend it more. Especially Egypt right now is going into its best season of the year to go.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank everybody for, taking the time today. Jonathan, again, we thank you so much. You've been a wonderful partner with A&K. We're so glad we were able to host you in these two amazing destinations. And I know you're going to post this to your website, so people will be able to contact you to book either Egypt, Uzbekistan, or anywhere else in the world they want through Jonathan's travels. And Abercrombie & Kent. So thank you all very, very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Pleasure.